Welcome back, folks, to another evening edition of Fizzy's Wacky World of Wrestling, episode 44. I'm starting to get the hang of these late at evening solo shows done in the middle of the night when the darkness and the full moon rises. It's just the perfect time to talk about professional wrestling, is it not? Anyway, this is William Fitzpatrick once again here to talk about the world of professional wrestling, the wacky world of professional wrestling. Anybody up for some broad games of brand conquest and bingo halls? I know I am. Because today, kids, folks, and fans, we're going to be talking about WWE. We haven't talked about them in a while, actually. Not since episode 40 have we not talked about WWE. And that was around the time of WrestleMania season. Well, a lot has changed since then, but a lot of the madness remains about the same. Same amount of eldritch abominations eating interns alive. The same amount of corporate bureaucracy and penny pinching. Same amount of unspeakable amounts of horrible, agonizing evil. But that is par the course for a giant company based in Stamford, Connecticut, whose corporate headquarters may resemble a devilish castle that literally Satan himself would have designed. Yes, I know it looks like a plain office building, but I think it's probably a giant medieval castle. That's why I oftentimes nickname WWE's corporate headquarters Mordor. And NXT is Isengard, obviously, because it's based down in Florida, and is being commanded by a completely different Dark Lord, Lord Saruman, the game, Triple H. And this was basically going to be an overall look at WWE for the past year or so. And it's not going to be any particular giant financial informations or any sorts of, massive amounts of information and whatnot. It's just an overall look from my perspective at the world of WWE. It's kind of reminding me of plain yogurt at this point. Yeah, you know that store brand plain yogurt that you buy at the supermarket? That's what WWE is right now. It is basically a generic brand of wrestling. And that's the key what WWE has been trying to do this year, is basically do the whole brands, glorious brands. Over here on this aisle of 9, we have your Raw brand and your various different superstars, such as Braun Strowman dumping Kevin Owens over a toilet, in which blue paint gets on his face. Great. Or our women's division being dominated by Punch, Ronda Rousey, who recently got inducted into the UFC Hall of Fame. Oops, that doesn't mean that WWE's getting another fight out of Ronda, isn't it? Well, there goes that MMA investment down the drain. At least we got this Brock Lesnar guy that can't even fight in the UFC until at least the beginning of the year, because he still has to pass for the USDA drug testing policy. Although apparently he is now in some hidden leaf village. For some reason, I don't get it. But regardless, our Beef Jerky Championship of Champions continuously is disappearing and is continuously getting information and filings from the Lost and Found department. Over in aisle 12, we have our grand and glorious veterans of the Isle of SmackDown, where every single person who's over the age of 35 is now featured onto our roster. Let's hope that they don't get horribly injured. Oh wait, some of them already have. And then, of course, our young, hot, and hip, and extremely cool section of NXT Indy superstars, dudes and dudettes, over in aisle 20 Z5, because we don't have numbers here in the future. All we have is extremely cool amounts of wrestling. All your favorite indie stars brand packaged into one aisle, based in the glorious demonic hells of Full Sail University, located in Winter Park, Florida. Don't get sacrificed, kids. Yes, of course. NXT, we'll be talking about that today as well. And also, please rise and bring out your bingo cards as we appoint our latest emperor. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, for those of you who have been living under a rock for the last couple of years, Vince really isn't directly in charge of the company anymore. He hasn't been for a while. Now, this is purely a theory of mine, and is a theory that I've had since the Royal Rumble in Florida a few years ago. I believe it was the Royal Rumble in 2016, I believe it was. And we observed something interesting, my mother and myself. Triple H seemed to be the guy that everybody was basically pointing as the boss, and Vince was some kindly old grandfather. Yes, I know the words Vince McMahon and kindly old grandfather do not mix. And probably some volcano in some Pacific island somewhere has probably just exploded at this point from reacting. Oh, cancel. Okay. I just had some kind of weird Google Chrome message come up. So anyway, besides that, yes, Vince is no longer really mainly in charge of the company because he's been obsessed by the game of fantasy football. Actually, no, it's an actual real football league. For those of you who haven't heard, Vince is bringing the XFL back, dudes and dudettes. Yes, relive the glory days of He Hates Me. And all of the other greatness that you've seen from our wonderful, glorious professional football league that he is now investing $500 million into in hopes that it doesn't blow up like it did the last time. And we all know that's how Vince's corporate ventures in other markets have gone, haven't they? Haven't gone very well, have they? Of course they haven't, because it's Vince. Anything that isn't wrestling, it usually blows up in his face. From Icon Pro supplements to, of course, the XFL. To, of course, that time that he tried to strong-arm NBC into its Saturday night event and got promptly kicked through the goalpost by the Ebersols, who, by the way, are also starting a football league as well, and a year earlier. Yeah, Vince has gotten himself into a petty feud with the Ebersol family over football. And for you wrestling fans, that is one of the best things that could possibly be happening right now. All those years that you've craved that Vince McMahon finally steps away from the spotlight. Well, you know what they say. It's better to know the evil that you do know than the evil that you don't know. And trust me when I say this, you have absolutely no idea of kind of the unspeakable hells that Triple H, George Burroughs, and Michelle Wilson have planned for you. Because those are the three people that are going to be in charge of WWE now that Vince has decided to go do his retirement project, which is the football thing. And I know some people are going to complain about the fact that wrestling-related resources are being raced on football, but this is the sacrifice that you have to make. I've talked about Faustian bargains before, haven't I? I even named an episode after one of them when I talked about the Mae Young Classic. There were going to be a lot of Faustian bargains that people were going to be doing in order to make the Mae Young Classic work. Guess what? All of those Faustian bargains have then happened. It's the same situation with wanting Vince gone. Yes, Vince is a satanic, evil, diabolical monster. But he's also a monster that is very open and very honest about his diabolical evilness. He is also the kind of person who literally does not give a single solitary DAMM about anybody around him. And I do apologize for the minor swearing, folks, but I do have to clarify that Vince really does not care about anybody. Really does not care about anybody's opinion of him. In fact, basically everybody uses Vince as sort of an electrical current, a lightning rod. They use him as a lightning rod to deflect controversy off of them and onto Vince. Vince can take any sort of nuclear heat that you throw at him, and he does not care in the slightest what you do. Every time that somebody, like one of us, has gone onto a podcast and has randomly complained about Vince, well, Vince just eats that up. It's demonic energy to him. He craves it. He enjoys it when people try to go after him. Because it's fun. Because it's a game to him. It's a fun little game for him to destroy every single Mark, Smark, or Clark, or whatever you call yourselves these days, in the world of professional wrestling. Look at what he's done to the media people. Look at what he's done to the wrestling personalities. Look at what he's done to people who've tried to cross him before. It's not ended pretty for people, is what I'm saying. So, what is this new regime going to do? Well, as you might have noticed, both they and New Japan Pro Wrestling currently now have new people in charge. George Burroughs is a marketing guy. So you have a marketing guy in charge of pro wrestling. Hello, AOL Time Warner. Oh yes, I remember the time that AOL Time Warner acquired the wrestling brand known as WCW. A lot of finger pointing can be pointed at either side, but let's be honest here. WCW was losing money hand over fist because they were wasting money on every single conceivable thing known to mankind. And the kitchen sink as well. It was a money pit that needed to be disconnected. And unfortunately for many people, well, that money pit turned out to be TNA. Basically, TNA is the next generation of WCW, folks. I know that it's a completely different company, but a lot of the same people were involved in the creative process behind that company. And look at all the horror stories that could fill up an entire Wikipedia page about it. So now we have George Barros and Michelle Wilson in charge of the corporate side of things. That leaves the wrestling side of things to Triple H. And I know how much you've been craving for Triple H to take control of wrestling. Everybody says, oh, well, how let Hunter take control of wrestling? He's already in control of wrestling operations. He's the head of talent relations. Vince is letting him do what he wants. To a certain extent. He's going to object on certain decisions that Hunter is going to do. But at the same time, he's going to let Hunter do his creative things. And, well, basically, it's the same as it's been before. It's a little bit more cognitive than it used to be. Both Raw and SmackDown seem to be more cognitive. But, again, it's just this kind of never-ending cycle of insanity. And that's where you have in this situation here. You have Raw, which is okay, and you have SmackDown, which is okay. And people are screaming, they have the most deep talent roster in years. Why aren't they doing anything with it? They are doing something with it. But they're not going to do the things that you expect them to do with that roster. Or, they're hemorrhaging the company. They're not doing enough. I think they're already doing plenty at this point. I know that there's a lot of expectations thrown around for WWE to do this or WWE to do that. But last I checked, and I don't mean to be offensive in this regard, you're not on their creative team. And I know that some of you would like to go full Highlander and try and take over a creative team's job position and proclaim that you'll do all these great things. And I go, have you seen how many ex-WWE creative writers have come back from the 7 levels of hell and have come back as completely changed, warped individuals? I think the only normal one, as I've said in the past, is Alex Greenfield. That's the only one that really realistically survived the writing offices of Raw and the writing offices of SmackDown and not had their souls consumed by Yog Sothoth himself, who admittedly also got kicked out of the New England territory in 1984, and Vince has him now on a part-time basis, because if we're going to be completely honest here, there's only going to be one full-time evil in the New England territory, and it's going to be Vincent Kennedy McMahon, not some flying spaghetti monster. So yes, we have that. We have all of those wonderful things, and we also have his marketing, Barros' marketing strategy, or as what the WrestleNomics team calls them, trademark bingo. Barros Bingo has become quite popular on Twitter these days, and Chris Harrington and Brandon Thurston have been popularizing the term of Barros Bingo, because those brave souls have decided to go into WWE corporate investor calls and, well, actually listen in, because they actually do have some investments with WWE, I think. And like any corporate investor, it's actually free to the public because WWE is a publicly traded company after all. So, yeah, you have those situations of people listening into the calls because, again, publicly traded company, news conferences, and the investor presentation that they had at the WrestleMania this past year, in which Triple H also revealed a grand scheme of taking over the world. No, literally, he showcased a map where NXT territories are planning to pop up. Conveniently, however, they seem to be targeting the North Pole instead of Iceland. Probably a smart decision at this point, given the fact that they don't really want to cross with EVE Online players. No, not Eva Marie, EVE Online players. Wikipedia, EVE Online, and see just how many horror stories of skullduggery and absolute madness you can find. They make Triple H look tame in comparison, and his evil acts in the world of professional wrestling. No, I am not kidding here. So, besides all of the skullduggery and wretched hive of scum and villainy that is an online space shooter game, yes, they basically are thinking that they're going to basically expand upon the brand into other countries because they basically feel that they've tapped out the US market. I honestly feel that they haven't because I feel as though that the majority of the audience has still not really been tapped either by WWE, Impact, Ring of Honor, heck, even not even by the regional indies to a certain extent. A lot of it is very segmented and closed off right now because there are a couple of schools of thought in the world of professional wrestling. There's a thought that this should be an exclusive club. I've never liked that ideology of wrestling being an exclusive club for people. I think it's really, really silly because it divides your market share. It divides your market value. It divides any sort of revenue that you get into your wrestling promotion when you decide to make it an exclusive club or have people run it like it is an exclusive club. That's why a few episodes back I degraded the term money mark because it allows a wrestling promoter to go completely insane and basically go, consequences? What consequences? I'm just having a wild party here. Beer pong, bros. Yep. Basically, it's the sort of a situation where they're allowed to go completely crazy, unchecked, and not be a professional business person running a promotion that is supposed to not only make money for that promotion, but also make money for the workers and also to provide a form of entertainment that people can afford to see at a venue. And also helps a venue actually attract individuals to come into their venue and, well, perform acts like professional wrestling instead of just basically being a tax write off for year upon year after year. You know, it helps the venue, it helps a performer, it helps a promoter, it helps everybody involved. When wrestling comes to a town, it helps everybody. Sometimes it might help more individuals more so than others, but unfortunately, that's the way of this business at this point in time. And I know that a lot of people are trying to change that, for better or for worse, depending on where your territory is and what people are involved in your scene. And with WWE, they are trying to conquer the brand. World conquest of brands. Glorious, glorious brands. So, what's going on with the brands? Well, I think we should probably take our first stop to Winter Park, Florida, shall we? Oh boy. Or should we? No, actually, let's go with the main roster first, since everybody likes to complain about the main roster. Actually, I find the main roster right now to be pretty good. It's not great. When your top babyface draw is Seth Rollins, you know you have depth problems, but there's really nothing you can really do about that. The guy has actually legitimately earned his babyface push this time. He's not being over pushed by Triple H yet again. So you have Balor, you have Seth, you have Elias, who's turning into a really solid mid-card act. You have Baron Corbin, who's changed his look. He is now Constable Baron Corbin, honorary member of the Anti-Fun Police, which is a British stable. And I do honestly wonder exactly what they're doing with Raw at this point, because basically the top belt right now is the IC Championship. Currently in the capable hands of Dolph Ziggler. Yes, I was being facetious in those words. Dolph Ziggler is your Intercontinental Champion. And he somehow has Drew McIntyre with him. Drew, do us all a favor. Promptly end him, please. I mean, Dolph's not terrible. He's gotten somewhat better than he has been in the past year, but he's your IC champion. And he won the title off of Rollins, which made the Rollins fans not terribly pleased about this particular development. I don't know whether or not I should be celebrating that or the fact that Dolph Ziggler is the one that won the belt off of him. I think I'm probably not going to celebrate because, again, you're just trading one problem for another. And then you have, of course, Balor in the title hunt for the heavyweight championship, which is the Beef Jerky Championship of Champions currently being held by Brock Lesnar, who is currently missing, and many people have put put his face on a milk carton. They didn't really need to because he showed up at a UFC event recently to declare his challenge for the heavyweight title belt in that promotion, and WWE is helping promote the fight. Well, I thought that the WWE Saudi Arabia deal was going to be the most awkward arranged marriage ever, but I guess the mixed martial arts community is going to step up to the plate and try to be even more awkward than that 11-year partnership is going to be, obviously. It already has started being somewhat controversial, knowing what the Saudi press is saying about WWE and what WWE is saying about them. Well, this is awkward. So now UFC is stepping into the ring under new ownership and a new brand, as well as missing so many fighters that basically they're having to call in fill-ins of fill-ins who are probably likely former New York Mets players, given their incredible luck. So yeah, not looking great for the whole partnership thing for WWE. Yeah, one of the things they're trying to do is they're trying to do brand partnerships with other brands and companies, and it's kind of working out, but it also kind of isn't working out for them. Barros has definitely got the business savvy of somebody who understands how to run a business, but he's not as hard headed as Vince is, where Vince is determined to succeed no matter what, even if it means massive losses. Massive, horrible, debt crunching losses. Which is why they have him doing a fantasy football project. And I know a lot of people want to see Vince McMahon away from the wrestling operations, which, like I said, it's kind of a double-edged sword. On the one hand, you're off, you don't have Vince. On the other hand, you have this evil that you completely don't know about that is now running your wrestling operations. Choose that door wisely, is what I'm saying. So we have Raw, which also has, once again, the Beef Jerky Championship of Champions, which is currently disappeared. And they have a green lunchbox of doom. And guess who wields the almighty lunchbox? Braun Strowman. Some might be excited about the prospect of Braun Strowman becoming World Heavyweight Champion. Others are currently dreading the prospect of Braun Strowman becoming World Heavyweight Champion and are preparing their fallout shelters justifiably in case the Braun apocalypse does indeed return. I talked about this last year on Wacky World. Braun, to me, is a cartoon caricature of a wrestler. He's a guy that will literally do any stunt and will crash into things, sometimes with cartoonish sound effects. He gets great matches with Roman Reigns, and there's a few matches that he's had okay matches with. This guy is a character who literally looked like he popped out of the 1980s wrestling scene and is now a character in today's WWE, which is sort of a weird cross between Attitude Era, New Generation Era, the Rock and Wrestling Era. Some of the 1970s has been dragged back into WWE's mainstream conscious. The in-ring product is very 1970s, I would basically say, because, well, Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens are duking it out for the title of King of the Chinlock as we speak. And then there's the Raw Women's Division, which consists of Nia Jax, who is also here, Alexa Bliss, who is now getting a lot of nuclear heat from people because of her bumping skills, Punch, who is setting her sights on the Women's Championship, that would be Ronda Rousey. And then we have the strange cases of Sailor Mars, Ember Moon, Sailor Moon, Sasha Banks, and Sailor Pluto, Bayley. Who Bayley finally snapped and proceeded to beat the bejesus out of Sasha Banks on a Raw segment. Yes, folks, Bayley has apparently become heel. Well, she already was a heel to begin with, but now it's basically official in WWE storylines. All you mother huggers are gonna pay now. Yep, Bayley's gone mad. She snapped. And next thing you know, that Bayley's gonna smash Sasha's PBC collection of Sailor Moon figurines. I should know that those things cost an arm and a leg. I think $599, maybe $1,000. When she does smash them, oh boy, in the name of the moon, even Usagi isn't going to protect you from the wrath that Sasha's going to give you. So yeah, we have a situation where Bayley is the heel and Sasha's the face, and I really do like what they're doing in that dynamic. I know a lot of people are complaining about the fact that the pacing has been awful, but Have you seen any animes recently? The pacing in this feud is basically about the same as that. Slow, slog, and probably boring with a monster of the week in between. So expect many, many encounters with Dana Brooks, Mickey James, and Ember Moon, who is the Sailor Mars in this situation, trying to sort this all out. While Bailey goes on her reign of hugging terror and proceeds to hug everyone to death. Oh, you mother huggers are gonna get it now. Yep. And we also have the fact that Ruby Riott is now out with an MCL sprain for about a month plus. Yeah, she's had great matches. She just now suddenly has hit the injury bug at the worst possible time. Hey, Bailey needs some lackeys. Why not give her Liv Morgan and Sarah? And Sarah Logan. I'm sure X23 and Neo Carmella will obviously enjoy the company of somebody who is far more punk rock Riot Squad than, well, Ruby Riott is. I know that Ruby wants to riot, but I think Bailey's probably going to outdo her at this point. So yes, we have had a lot of changes in Raw and SmackDown and whatnot, but it's going to be very interesting to see what exactly is happening in this particular instance. I mean, there's a lot of changes. Mind you, there's also a lot of question marks, insanity, and of course the random madness of the writers changing a story, whatnot, week after week. Your current tag champions are Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt. Matt Hardy and Bray Wyatt, who, by the way, was also involved. Bray Wyatt was also involved in a head-on collision this week. He's okay, apparently, apart from some minor injuries and some possible head trauma. But I don't expect they're going to be holding the belts for much longer, given and at this particular rate. The curse of the Wyatt family continues once again. I think the only one not affected by it so far has been Braun, and even that had its own issues and insanity. But regardless, we've talked a little bit about Raw. We talked about all of the issues, like Dolph Ziggler's Intercontinental Champion, and Alexa Bliss is the Raw Women's Champion once again, which I'm okay with. Once again, I'm like, again, here's the important thing I'm going to be saying for, like, what was it, the 698th time? Just because your fave has the shiny thing doesn't mean that the things are going to get better for them. In fact, it's going to basically put them in a very bad position because they're going to be stuck in a murder's row of storytelling principles. The giant challenger that is unstoppable. Ding. The best friend that turns horribly evil. Ding. The up-and-coming babyface challenger as the other babyface starts to turn heel. Your champion who was once babyface turns heel. It's all very predictable sets of storytelling that have been used by wrestling from generations to generations to generations, and not just by WWE. These are basically the basic principles of wrestling storytelling. And I know a lot of people want to do a nuanced sort of new agey hipster style stories with wrestling, which can be done in independent promotions. But good luck trying to do a mainstream. Seriously, good luck trying to do a mainstream because, again, you're dealing with a mainstream audience that may not necessarily get it. Remember, you're possibly dealing with the lowest common denominator here. You're not dealing with people who are intellectual, independent wrestling fans with the beanie hats and the pipes and the square sunglasses, and will tell you exactly which moment of this wrestler did at this particular independent show. It was held at a fortnight in a bingo hall somewhere in the middle of freezing cold -15 temperatures with 50 fans in it. Yeah, that's something that might work in that particular context might not necessarily work in a larger venue or a larger context, as far as WWE is concerned. It's simple storytelling. And I know people really want to see WWE do this or that or the other thing that seems to be the most logical, but have you seen how WWE deals with logic? It's so funny that it actually has its own section, WWE Logic. Because it's basically the equivalent of crossing the streams. You don't cross them. I can use logic with WWE storytellings, but then again, I'm sane. Note, I'm probably not. And I could probably tell you exactly why this story works or why this particular context of how this writer wrote this up because I'm good at storytelling. Would I apply to be a WWE writer? Unless they decided to drive a dump truck full of money in my general direction, no. There's a large amount of hassle. There's a large amount of insanity. I've seen other ex-writers be eaten alive as being, as trying to write in a WWE's writer room, and I don't have the required 3 to 5 years experience of doing scripted TV shows. Yeah, I'm not really all that interested in that particular context. I know other people have said to me, Fizz, you should do writing. I'm like, I mean, I'm a good writer. My punctuation skills are a bit questionable and my grammar skills are a bit questionable, but I'm a decent writer. I can tell you exactly where a story is probably going to head just by analyzing where this story might be headed and how, and just by, heck, even looking from spoiler tapings or just looking at an overall feud and seeing where it's going to go. And yes, we're going to get back to this a little bit later because we haven't covered NXT yet. Let's go to SmackDown next. So, this is our roster of aging veterans who are holding down the fort on the so-called B show. A 40-something-year-old AJ Styles with knee issues. Daniel Bryan, who somehow has been miraculously cleared because apparently his head wasn't as serious as people reported it as is. Randy Orton, who I suspect has taken time off. Jeff Hardy is your US champ. That's kind of a weird move. Shelton Benjamin is here. And there's not really much else. I mean, Paige is your new GM, if you're into that sort of thing. The Woo took a loss, and she's taking time off. Asuka's embroiled in a feud with Carmella. James Ellsworth is back to have his face ripped off by a terrifying velociraptor. No, not Candice LeRae. The other one, Asuka. And, well, honestly, SmackDown has the benefit of not really having a lot going for it, but again, I've said this before and I'll say it again. The summer is actually one of my favorite months for WWE. Oh, speaking of feuds, I forgot. We forgot our two challengers, although given again they are sort of kind of invisible. Moving back to Raw slightly for a second. It's time to talk about the grandest feud of all. Bobby Lashley and Roman Reigns. Yes, you read that right. In 2018, there is a feud going on between Bobby Lashley of TNA fame, the hero to us all, the one who destroyed Kurt Angle, and the beloved Roman Reigns. Beloved by all, even by those who boo him out of the building and try to chuck car batteries at the guy. Yes, the beloved Roman Reigns. He who slayed Jinder Mahal in Chicago at Money in the Bank. He who now faces Bobby Lashley. The hero that we all needed. Yes, even you, Roman Empire. And I'll explain. Roman Reigns right now has some of the most perplexing, bizarre booking that anybody has ever seen in WWE in the last several years. I personally don't mind it because basically I see him as a heel anyway and can basically go, I'll go with a different reality than what everybody else is doing. Of course, Fizzy and entering Fizzy's reality probably is not healthy for one's health. Or not good for one's health, I should say. The idea of Roman Reigns as WWE World Heavyweight, WWE Universal Champion, yes, they're still targeting him to win the Beef Jerky Championship of Champions, despite all logic pointing to anybody but Roman at this point. Yes, you can make a solid heel run on a Roman. Yes, you could probably turn him into one of those cool heels that's well liked by the fans. I mean, what do you do with Roman? Everybody's asked that question for 5 years now. Everybody's asked that same question. What do you do with Roman Reigns? What do you do with this? What do you do with that? And I go, well, you just let him be what he be. What he'll be. And I mean, it's this weird obsession with, as I've said, I don't like the guy concept. The guy, the top guy concept, because I go, that just limits your possibilities and your options as far as what you can do in that situation. And I know that you have an established card, but a lot of traditions in wrestling these days aren't really working for a modern audience. They're not working for this type of crowd. They're not working for this type of industry. A lot of people want to go to a wrestling show and be entertained. A lot of people are yelling at those other people for entertaining, actually being more entertaining than the acts that are actually wrestling in front of that ring. But again, we live in the age where posting selfies is a thing. We live in an age where everybody's trying to gain attention by wearing the most ridiculous outfit possible. Notwithstanding, if you're actually going to a church to an independent wrestling show and wearing a 1970s silk jacket, that would be, just doing something different. Was not out of a case of attention, but instead actually going to a wrestling show, having a good time, enjoying booing the heels and cheering the faces. A person who goes to a WWE show doesn't think that like that, though. They are really interested in themselves. It's the ego and id of it all. And even the people who complain about it have that issue too. So you have egomania, you have narcissism, you have insanity, you have all those things wrapped up into a churro of destruction. And it's a thing that basically happens because you want there to be, I don't know, you want to attract attention somehow. I've never really understood that personally, even though I wear long hair. And like I said, I wore a silk jacket, an aqua green silk jacket from the 1970s at a wrestling show. Didn't mean that I was interested in attention. What I was basically doing was, okay, well, I'm just going to wear a jacket because it's comfortable. Not just because, wanted to look cool or something. I look at the exact opposite of that. And when you look at how the fan reaction is going, and I've talked about the four pillars of fandom before, and wrestling fans are a very interesting and very complicated issue, especially when they start worshiping their faves like literal gods. I'm pretty certain that Roman's phone is usually kept on constant lockdown, and his Twitter app is usually a buzzing with massive amounts of explosions, I would assume, from the various legions of his empire. Talking about Roman this and Roman that. And we talk about Bobby Lashley. They don't like Bobby Lashley right now. They don't like him like they don't like Jinder Mahal. Because again, it's supposed to be another person that Roman's supposed to conquer, supposed to slay. And I like Bobby Lashley. He's not done very well in his WWE run so far, constantly botching things, although in retrospect, trying to lift Big Cass, who was released, kind of was a bad idea. And everything involving Big Cass turned into one ginormous botch, apart from Daniel Bryan ripping him limb from limb and sending him packing after the Money in the Bank show. But, the brand conquest for SmackDown, oh yes, that's right. USA Network isn't going to be having SmackDown anymore. Oh yes, this is another one of Barros' bingo games, trademark WrestleNomics Radio. Where Barros struck a TV deal with Fox. Yes, Fox Network is going to try and run WWE programming on their main stations yet again. They tried this briefly with Saturday Night Main Event in 1992. Didn't work out very well. So they're going to be broadcasting SmackDown in 2019 as we move back into SmackDown. Boy, that's a real interesting investment, and WWE got a lot of money for it. I wonder how long before the buyer's remorse kicks in for Fox, because Fox just pulled a desperation move. They pulled a desperation move so badly that even WWE is snickering about the fact that, oh, hey, for once, we're not the ones that are screwing up at this point. Because Fox paid a lot of money for WWE programming on their stations because at this point in time, they're losing a lot of money with NASCAR. They're losing a lot of money with Major League Baseball. They're losing a lot of money with the NFL. And so they decided to supplement that with wrestling, as well as the fact that UFC decided to sign a deal with ESPN. Oh, this is an awkward marriage if I've ever seen one because UFC is now talking with WWE and is possibly promoting their card. Oh boy. This is about 1,000 times awkward. So now you have a situation where Fox is stuck in a position where they now have SmackDown. And that's going to be a very interesting partnership going forward because the partnership doesn't start until October of 2019, or I believe. Oh boy. I can now just feel the levels of awkward going. You had a segment where Braun Strowman dumped Kevin Owens out of a porta potty. Well, that fits in with our demographic, but weren't we expecting something called wrestling? I know it's sports entertainment in WWE land, but at the same time, I think that's what they're expecting. They're not expecting what WWE is creating. I know people say the product sucks and all this other kind of stuff. I'm like, calm down. Don't be so reactionary about this because it's just what I like to call the ebb and flow theory. Yes, there's ebbs and flows in everything in life, and there is ebbs and flows in wrestling too. And when you look at it from an ebb and flow perspective, you go, okay, they're doing okay. They're not setting themselves on fire for once, which is good. No, that's for NXT. Oh, you didn't think I'd forgot about NXT, did you? No, I didn't. But before then, let's talk a little bit about SmackDown. Rusev is somehow your most over babyface. No, I still don't get why people are chanting Rusev Day at the guy. No, I don't get why Ty Dillinger is still here, burning the eyeballs of anybody that watches him wrestle. No, I don't get why they still push a large amount of over-the-hill veterans instead of their younger talent. No, I don't get why Killian Dane hasn't eaten an entire bucket load of pancakes yet, although Sanity is currently feuding with the New Day at this point and has already lost to them. Okay. Well, we'll see where that goes from there. Why hasn't Big E gotten a singles push? I don't know. They have plans for that. Why are the Bludgeon Brothers still dominating the tag team division? I don't know. Ask the writers. Ask creative. They'll probably tell you the same thing. Go, oh, well, we're trying to do something different. Because again, it's the summer months. It's an era of experimentation. And I know people are like, but we want people in this box and we want people in that box. And that's the big weakness right there. You're trying to force people in boxes, and yet you're not a writer. And yet you're not a WWE writer. It's okay to fantasy book. Completely okay to fantasy book. But you have to have the understanding of, here's the thing. Everybody says, WWE needs to do this. WWE needs to do that. Where I'm like, well, here's an idea. If you're desperate and you need an idea to go with, here's something that's a suggestion. If you want to do it, okay. If you don't want to do it, that's fine too. But they're going to go with whatever idea that they're going to go with, regardless if it's your idea that they picked up on some kind of random part of the interwebs or not. And as much fun as fantasy booking is, it also leads to a situation where everybody wants to be an armchair booker, which leads down to the path of madness that is becoming a so-called money mark, running your own promotion. And once again, like I said, I hate that term, money mark. I prefer professional business person because I'm a professional business owner. I run my own business. Okay, I've run my own business since I was what? I don't know, let's see, since 2002, 2003, I think I was 12. I've helped out with businesses before. I raised butterflies. I'm raising microgreens now. Radish, corn, pea shoots, sunflowers for restaurants as a professional business person. I have a copy of Lee Iacocca's autobiography, which I've talked about in past episodes, sitting here on my decks right now. The first autobiography of Lee Iacocca, who was the guy who saved Chrysler. I'm really interested in business. And I'm interested in independent business because I see independent business from small business perspectives as something really interesting to look at. Regional businesses like regional retail or regional specialty stores or regional promotions, regional wrestling. It's all really interesting to me, and remember and learning the facets of all of this sort of stuff from my outside perspective. Because if you're intelligent and if you have really good critical thinking and observation skills, you can figure out what's behind the curtain without even having to go through the curtain yourself. And that's what I've been doing with wrestling. Studying it, researching it, learning the nuances, learning the terminology, learning the strange, mean culture of the wrestling personalities, learning about the wrestlers who compete in each of these regional promotions, learning about wrestling media, learning about podcasting, learning about fandoms. You want to know the first fandom that I started studying for human zoology, which is basically looking at how a fandom works in a zoological environment? The anime fandom. And when I looked at the anime fandom, I then looked over at the steampunk fandom. Then I looked over at the webcomic fandom. Then I looked over at the wrestling fandom. I studied every little nuances that you could find about the wrestling fandom, their strengths, their weaknesses, their various psychological conditions, and looked at it from that particular lens and said, okay, this will be interesting. And it has been interesting. And from the perspective of a WWE fan, you have people who want their hopes and dreams. There are some who want their hopes and dreams to come true. There are those who are so self-destructive that they want everything to remain the same. You can say that a lot of it about a lot of independent wrestling, and you can say that about a lot of other promotions. There are those who want to prove that their brand is superior than others. It's like people fighting over shoes. And when I mean shoes, I'm talking about the NBA. Like people talking about Jordan Nikes or Reeboks or Magic shoes or Shaquille's shoes or any of the other kind. They want to prove that their brand of shoes is the best. There's an obsession with being the best instead of, okay, you're good at something. That's cool. And you have this situation where I remember people were talking about the brands, the glorious, glorious brand of Raw who surely crushed that puny SmackDown with our superior front booking. Our superior knowledge and intellectualism will slave the day over those lowly peasants. Nay, the SmackDown fandom and its cold punk rock rebel aesthetic will surely smash over those puny intellectuals known as Raw. We shall be the ones to flag the blue flag high, and we'll wave it back and forth, showcasing that our brand is superior with its brand of knowledgeable booking. Even though they literally shot everything out of the cannon within the first 6 months and proceeded to then fall faster than a comet, than a space shuttle, fall faster than a comet down to Earth, and knock over a space shuttle while they're at it. So, with those two brands, Raw and SmackDown, you have a situation where, regardless of which brand you pick, you've automatically been put into the game. You've been put into Hunter's little game. And I don't know if he's been reading, what is that one series called? The Hunger Games. But you've been put into the hunt. Now you'll have to murder your fellow fan who's either representing Team Red or Team Blue. Have fun with that. It's this whole attention to detail to cause the market to fight against one another, because whichever brand you pick, they win. They win because as the age-old casino gamblers will say, as casino owners will always say to you, the house always wins. regardless of how good of a gambler you are, the house always wins. Regardless of if it's the old emperor or if it's the new emperor, they have you by the collar and they ain't letting go. Because you picked Raw or you picked SmackDown or you decided to go and picked the third option, NXT. And you can't see it from behind this avatar, but there is a large grin smiling over my face because I'm getting into a groove. And whenever I get into a groove, I start talking about how I feel about a certain promotion. Congratulations on becoming the Dan Snyder of professional wrestling promotions, Hunter. Because NXT is in some pretty serious trouble. No, it's not their women's division. Heck, it's not even their developmental division. The developmental division has so many prospects and players that it is literally bursting at the seams with potential possibilities. But we all know how fickle potential is. We all know how potential can lead to disaster, can lead to draft busts, can lead to bodies in its wake. And NXT is in that situation, as is the main roster, because now they're stuck with dealing with the whims and the insanities of the mad, mad cult from Full Sail University in Winter Park, Florida. NXT. They're going to be wishing that it was a reality show because let's talk about that roster. Your main champion is Satan. No, not that Satan, the other Satan. Aleister Black is your NXT champion. He was thought to be a good champion, a good person to pick out of the pile of bodies that they have down there for the NXT championship. Despite the fact that Candice LeRae is considerably more intimidating and scary and probably would be a better champion for their main division. No, not the women's division, the top division, the championship division. Because she has more presence and terror than, well, Gargano and Ciampa, which I'll talk about in a little bit. Yes, she was the second most scariest person, and to me, looked like the second best challenger for the NXT Championship that wasn't named Gargano or Ciampa, or who was it I was thinking of? Well, you had Lars Sullivan there too, and Killian Dane, who is now off at SmackDown, probably eating something. Let's see here. Wow, that's your first problem. See, he's unloaded on so much independent wrestling contracts that it's like, who are you going to be pushing at the top of your division again? I mean, it's the exact opposite problem the main roster has. They have too few people to push to the top. With NXT, there's too many. Like, people would be saying, well, call them up with stories. Have you seen that Almas has currently disappeared from the SmackDown roster? No, seriously, the guy has literally pulled a vanishing act. He has become so ungovernable that he has apparently been ungovernable enough that he's not showing up for the main tapings. Not in real life, mind you. They just don't have anything planned for him. They were going to put him into the U.S. title picture, but again, like many things involving WWE and brand conquest, I think they've realized that Mexico is kind of a place where they're going to have a lot of trouble. I mean, how in the world are you going to top a 50-something-year-old LA Park and Rush selling out Arena Mexico every night that they perform, or at least every week that they perform, regardless? Or Phoenix and Pentagon Jr. showing up? Yes, pigs have flown in Mexico. Along with everything else. Everything else is flying in a spiritual realm because Arena Mexico is actually selling out on Friday nights. For the first time in ages. Weird, isn't it? This wacky world of professional wrestling. So, brand conquest. Raw, SmackDown, and of course, your third flavor of brand. The extreme brand, of course. NXT. Like I said, they don't seem to have very much in the pipeline as far as, oh, who's our main challenger? Well, currently Aleister Black, after disposing of the Jekyll and Hyde monstrosity that is going to cause anybody who dislikes Braun Strowman to start screaming at the top of their lungs, in Lord Sullivan, you have another problem to deal with now. Aleister Black now has to face Tommaso Ciampa. Okay. That's not a spoiler, by the way. They debuted that on taping this past week. Also, Johnny Wrestling is no longer Johnny Wrestling. Oh, goody! Johnny Gargano is finally in his natural alignment. A villainous egomaniac hipster, like he always has been. Now, normally, folks, like I said, one of the phrases I have is, I hate being right. I told you that Gargano wasn't going to be a true blue babyface. I told you that Ciampa was going to be the greatest hero that you ever realized, but you didn't listen. Or you thought I was being fizzy again, or you thought I was being crazy. And that Candice LeRae was going to be lost in the shuffle, and that she was going to be lost in the shuffle and de-pushed because she was getting more exposure than, well, Johnny, who's puts me to sleep. Yes, not unlike Adam Cole, who actually did legitimately put me to sleep watching his matches, because Johnny Gargano matches are so full of excess that it is hard to comprehend why exactly he's so gosh dang popular. Maybe people who really are obsessive about their wrestling and like, oh, well, he has to pull off that little move, and he has to pull off that move, and he has to pull off that other move because that's part of his signatures. I read about it on Wikipedia. By the way, they're removing wrestler signature maneuvers from Wikipedia. I should mention that beforehand. So if you want to look at your favorite superstar, you might see a sudden change in their Wikipedia article. You might have to go to some other websites to see the list of moves that they do. Just letting you know ahead of time. So yeah, you have that, and you have all of the other insanity. And I told you so. I told you that they weren't going to go traditional babyface with Johnny Gargano. They know full well that if they put a hipster babyface in charge, that the fans are going to think, oh, well, we rule NXT. Time to sacrifice some more goats to the god of Triple H once again in our underground cult cellar basement with a giant golden statue of Triple H himself. We bless us here today for NXT and its true wonderment of hipster wrestling. Oh, great almighty shovel, bless us our humble home, as we once again crave the Indies and sweep through like an intergalactic space invader, swooping in and stealing every single independent wrestler that we possibly can to lucrative long-term contracts. Great for the wrestlers, mind you. Not necessarily great for the Indies, but also kind of good for the Indies as well. Because everybody panicked about the Bola lineup this year and suddenly realized that it's a bunch of new faces. That's one of the major positives of Hunter going old Dan Snyder and signing as much free agent talent as he could possibly muster. And when I say he throws money at everything, he literally does do that thing where he throws money at everything. They have literally become like the Washington Football Club, throwing money at every possible thing that moves in order to roll the dime. Especially since he needs extra troops for when he initiates N Day, which is like D-Day, except it involves wrestling and invading the various different territories to take over the world. Today, Florida, you can keep it. Tomorrow, the world. And I'm not kidding here. He had a literal battlefield plan during that business conference that they did back in April of conquering every single international territory that they could think of. One problem, though, everybody else has gotten the same idea. So now NXT is kind of late to the game, and they decided to invest heavily in Britain with NXT UK. Oh, how that's not going to blow up in their face somehow. I wonder. So back to the Gargano Ciampa debacle, which is this feud has become a debacle. I said it was I was interested in seeing where this feud might go. I even did a fan post about it. And I was shocked to find out that they went exactly in the direction I thought they were going to go into. Not only were they going to have Gargano do a premature victory, which set up for a rematch, which was not needed, that they weren't going to do this feud one and done, that they were actually going to do multiple feuds because they thought that this feud was money instead of being dull and tiresome. And they had Ciampa go over in the second contest, which then led to Johnny starting to snap, and Johnny now no longer considers himself Johnny Wrestling and is now giggling maniacally. Which, for those of you who are Dragon's Gate USA fans, we are blessed in this timeline to see the welcome return of heel Johnny Gargano. A man who steals Lucha Libre mask, unleashes evil in the form of Ethan Page, unintentionally brought forth the evil of the very first Cruiserweight champion, TJ Perkins. You may all scream now. And of course, unleashed the unspeakable evil known as Tommaso Ciampa, which we are now speaking about because he's the current challenger for the heavyweight championship. So wait, a guy who has been through every single hardcore wrestling spot imaginable and is a literal glass cannon now faces against your miracle worker heavyweight champion who got a 4-star match out of Velveteen Dream of all people, who also has recently proceeded to have an indie spot fest match with NXT's latest signing. No, it's not Antoine Randall, it's Ricochet. He signed Ricochet. Yes, that guy. The Lucha Underground guy who used to be Prince Puma. The guy that they didn't allow to do promos. So he's now stuck in the mix, along with ex-TNA guy EC3. Yes, Ethan Carter III is in NXT. And they've got nothing to do with him. And they're using Donovan Dijak as an enhancement talent jobber. Yes, they're so full to the brim with independent wrestling talent that they literally have no idea what they're doing in that situation. And no, I don't think fantasy booking helps in this situation. I think that they really just need to figure out what exactly they're doing and what that they can do in this situation. All that fantasy booking is going to do in this situation is muddle the waters because we really have no idea who's going to be a success and who's going to be a failure in developmental mental. I know that people want some people to succeed because they're indie darlings, and I know some people are interested in seeing non-indie darlings succeed as well, which now leads us into the massive, galactic fight that is, oh boy, we have your indie faves and your non-indie faves fighting against one another. So it's basically like the main roster equivalent of Rusev, Alexa Bliss, and Braun Strowman. Only Rusev has now become favored by both the so-called marks, which they aren't marks, they're not being conned out of anything last I checked, or the smarks. I prefer the term intellectuals because again, there's I don't know why you would literally acknowledge yourself of being smart to be conned. Because that's what the term mark means. Mark is somebody being conned. There's no conning going on in wrestling right now. It's all legitimate. From the perspective of it's a sports entertainment company, we know that it's scripted. So all those cheap parlor tricks don't really work anymore. Or if they do, they're really half-baked. Much like what, well, our yellow and black brand is. Your women's champion is Shayna Baszler. And is now dominating the division. Actually giving the division some credence of, hey, we have a dominant champion for once and we have some decent competition. Sure, they might have called up some people too fast and didn't allow for proper challengers to come up, but I like the women's division better than I did last year. And heck, I even thought that the Ember Moon title run was a good idea. I think that the expectations when it comes to the women's divisions are so amped up to the point of it really does make me worry for them that they really are overhyping it. Let's just let things be as they be and see where they go. Not from a positive perspective, not from a negative perspective, but from a neutral perspective of, all right, let's see where this goes. I'm interested in seeing where this goes. What's going to happen here? You have Bianca Belair and her abs, which will obviously judge everybody. You have Dakota Kai kicking everything to death. You have Candice LeRae, who is the biggest monster that this division ever has, or will ever have. Nikki Cross, who is currently stuck in limbo. And Shayna Baszler, and of course, Kairi Sane, who, with Io Shirai being signed by WWE, might want to consider a career in piracy. Here, there's a giant boat cruise going on on Halloween night, and has a bunch of wrestlers on it. So, yeah, I suspect that she's probably going to turn to a life of piracy and invade the ROH Impact cruise ship of doom, is what they're calling it. I guess it's the Jerry Cruise. I cannot think of a more ironic 7 levels of hell than that place, besides, of course, Titan Tower. Stuck on a boat with wrestlers, comedians, and musicians. And wrestling fans. Well, there's my idea of HE double hockey sticks. Right there. Overpriced, overpaid boat. Having to pay $8,500 or more to be stuck on a boat. Yeah, that's my idea of a good time right there, I say sarcastically. Yeah, so you have that, and then you have the tag division, which is being run by the Undisputed Era and Mustache Mountain? Seriously, Mustache Mountain? You brought them in just to be tag jobbers, I guess? Because Heavy Machinery is now facing against the Mighty? Ah, yes, once again, another Australian team that is as bland as butter. Kind of not surprising when an Australian team fails. Look at the Iconics. I mean, they're doing okay for now. They certainly have formed a destructive posse with Sonya Deville and Mandy Rose, along with Carmella. But when is it gonna fall? I mean, Peyton Royce is a solid enough in-ring technician, even though she is as interesting as Emma, which is basically the equivalent of a loaf of bread. But what's going on here? And how are you doing this? And you have, of course, NXT. Like I said, I think the women's division is in a good place right now. It's not being excessively overhyped. I think it's doing okay. Everybody has these, like I said, grand expectations as to where what this is going to be doing or that's going to be doing. And I'm like, let's see how it goes. No, seriously, let's see how it goes. It might turn out great. It might turn out horrible. Who knows? Wrestling is unpredictable that way. Tag division, same way. You have Mustache Mountain, and then you have the Undisputed Era with Adam Cole, baby, who is now basically the permanent tag partner. However, the great thing is right now, Adam Cole has been replaced by a bizarre version of himself. Ladies and gentlemen, we have now being introduced to the graces of Bizarro World Roderick Strong. Bizarro World Roderick Strong actually has charisma and is one of the most arrogant heels you'll ever find. Yes, PWG Roddy has arrived in NXT. Well, that was odd. We've just signed EC3 to be the obnoxious heel, and yet Roderick Strong has somehow displayed charisma for the first time in ages. This is awkward. I mean, they've stockpiled so many people. They've stockpiled so much talent. They're like, well, let them go work on the indies. Well, they are, actually. Some of them are actually going back to their home promotions to wrestle at shows. I mean, I think the otaku guy, Brandon Williams, he came back to Reality of Wrestling to wrestle on a show, which is based in Houston. So they are doing independent shows. I mean, Apollo Crews showed up for an RPW show once, I think. So that's a bit odd. I mean, they're possibly going to be integrating the indies into their WWE network. I mean, there's been talk for years that Progress is joining up with them at this point. But that's a ways away, and we're really not sure what's going to happen. I mean, heck, they're talking about buying Evolve. Then again, that was another rumor that might happen or might not happen. And then you have your North American champion, which is Adam Cole. I cannot think of a more Seth Rollins-ish champion than Adam Cole. I mean, the great thing about Adam Cole is, one, I know that this is basically putting the heat on Seth Rollins from Hunter, because he's basically cloned Seth Rollins and has put him into a different body, and that person is Adam Cole. And if Seth messes up again, Adam Cole's waiting in the wings to replace him. Or Kyle O'Reilly, or any of the other guys who look like about the same, but have different gimmicks and personalities. I mean, Tino Sabatelli had the most horrible luck of having a knee injury right around the time the EC3 came around. Great, the clone has been replaced by the original. Yeah, this is definitely a very weird time in NXT history. It's even more weird when you think about it. Yes, NXT is relying on a lot of independent wrestlers to contribute, as well as a lot of unknown young stars going through their developmental system to make an impact. And suddenly, a promotion in Canada just got really cold feet. Because, well, a lot of former Impact stars are now aboard the NXT wagon and the main roster wagon. That's a bit awkward. But at the same time, I really do feel like there's going to be. When is the bubble going to burst on NXT at this point? They're over expanding dramatically. I think to a point where they might be expanding way too hard. I mean, they're thinking about getting into Japan. Good luck for an American brand to get into Japan, by the way. Just ask Microsoft how that went for them, or has been going for them. It's not gone very well. Or Britain. Just ask the Brit. Just ask. Go ask Ford about how they did with British Leyland when they bought Range Rover. Yes, it's a successful brand for them, but they had to deal with a lot of hassle with Range Rover and Jaguar. Or go ask BMW when they acquired Rover. Yes, it's kind of an awkward situation where now WWE is the equivalent of an auto manufacturer investing into an automotive industry in Britain. It might not necessarily work out, because Progress, for all intents and purposes, is the British Leyland of wrestling promotions. A lot of great ideas there. A lot of possibly good, really good talent. Management, I don't know about that one. Not about that much. You know, you could just go back to 1978. For example, they might be having a show at around the date of the World Cup. Boy, that's a bit awkward, especially since England is pretty close to making it to the finals at this point. So, Hunter's trying to negotiate with all of these indies. Well, that's going to work out fabulously, he said sarcastically. And he's also trying to negotiate with all these independent wrestlers and trying to, conquer the world, conquer the wrestling world. Vince desired money, Hunter desires power. And this game of brand conquest and bingo halls is going to be really interesting, especially when George Barrow starts throwing around bingo cards. But if you want a more economic analysis of WWE, go check out WrestleNomics Radio, by the way. They're the guys that really know their stuff when talking about WWE. I look at things from just the perspective of how I see it from an intellectual's perspective, how this might go, and from the random tangential thoughts that I have about the world of professional wrestling today. And Raw is okay. SmackDown is doing okay. NXT, oh my god, so much stuff could go so badly wrong. The only thing that's solid right now is their women's division. Their tag division is basically just 2.5 teams, if we count Heavy Machinery into the mix, or the Street Profits, who are nowhere to be found. We have a lot of developmental wrestlers, and we have a lot of cost, investments into wrestlers that may or may not work out. Really does depend on how things go. You better hope that that wrestling bubble continues to exist. I mean, I like the whole wrestling bubble right now, but at the same time, when is there going to be solid reinvestment into wrestling? Because it's great to make as much money as possible. Why aren't you reinvesting it? Rings, production, more seats, more chairs. Your promotion should be able to, regardless of if it's WWE or a small time bingo hall, should be able to be investing something, investing a return. And right now, WWE is like, and I know people are also saying, okay, Vince is spending $500 million on his football league. Why isn't he investing in wrestling? He's already invested a lot into wrestling. And I know people are all going to say, well, he should be investing more. Well, again, Vince is retiring. And it's the evil that we know that's retiring. And it's the evil that we don't know that's going to come into the situation. And I have no clue what they're going to be doing, but it's probably going to be something diabolical. And it's probably something that you're not going to like. So just be ready for that. Not saying that it's going to happen, but I'm probably right on that. Or if it's not going to happen. But I have enough experience to realize that these wrestling promotions can go from really good to total Donner Party within the span of a snap of a finger. And with a simple snap of the finger, the gates themselves open. And the various different horsemen or horsewomen of the apocalypse come forth. And they ain't Ric Flair, and they ain't Arn Anderson, and they ain't Tully Blanchard, or Charlotte Flair, or Lex Luger, or whatever you think. No, they're the four horsemen of the wrestling apocalypse. Or four horse people. They are economic realities, financial burden, personal dramas, famine, plague, lust, obsession, and everything else under the sun that the world of professional wrestling has had to deal with for decades upon decades. And well, it's 4:45 a.m. as I see on the clock here, and well, I've talked a bit about brand conquest, I've talked a bit about bingo halls, and I talked about it in a sort of a random thought process of how this is going to work or not. I'm pretty certain that, looking at this from this perspective, I'm still smiling about the fact that I hate being right, but I saw this Gargano Ciampa thing coming a mile away. Gargano was not going to be booked as a traditional babyface. He was going to be booked like a Triple H babyface, which means he goes completely crazy and loses whatever character distinction that that people liked about him in the first place. Although I'm kind of struggling as to see why, because Johnny's unlikable, at least to me. Ciampa's the one that has the sympathetic story here, not Gargano. The idea of a guy like Gargano manipulating a psychopath to use as his personal meat shield really is the bigger story here than just Johnny being Johnny wrestling, making people. I don't know, like, they say that he makes them happy, and I go, he makes you guys happy? Okay. It's good on one hand, but it's also false happiness. Johnny's not a babyface in my mind. Johnny's a heel. Johnny's a guy who is emotionally manipulated a psychopath. Yes, I know it's Ciampa, but at the same time, he should have had more common sense into what he was doing with the guy instead of doing what he did, which was basically turn him into a giant killer robot to mow any and all who opposed the Gargano Ciampa DIY brand. So as we once again pick up yet another year of brand conquest and yet another year of Barros Bingo, as we now experience our new overlord, New Japan also has a new overlord, Harold. And, well, the same problems that have plagued New Japan for years are still affecting them. But I think I'll get into the other promotions next time, because this has been episode 44 of Wacky World of Wrestling, of Fizzy's Wacky World of Wrestling. These solo shows are becoming really interesting and very fun to do for me personally because they're generally very fun shows that I can talk about for just about like an hour or so and see where things go or lead. And for those of you who have stuck around, thank you so much for watching these broadcasts. You can follow me on Twitter at Fitzpatrick14. And, well, next show is yet again going to be another medley show. And it's also going to be the 45th episode of Wacky World of Wrestling. Yeah, that's right, folks. We're 6 more episodes away from reaching 50. Don't really have anything special planned for 50, but we'll see where it goes from there. But until then, this has been Games of Brand Conquest and Bingo Halls. Fizzy's Wacky World of Wrestling episode 44 is in the books. Have a great day or night, ladies and gentlemen, and I hope to see you again for the next edition of Wacky World of Wrestling. Have a good day or good night. Bye!